It's no secret that Destiny is in a pretty terrible state right now, with community sentiment at arguably the lowest point in the 11-year history of the game. Huge pillars of the community have left the game, either short-term or permanently, and the pressure was really on for Bungie's raid and dungeon team to provide a silver lining to some of the darkest clouds that have ever descended over Destiny. In reality, the epic raid race served up several massive talking points, with mind-blowing plot twists, the uncovering of a 10-year-long secret, inevitable controversy, world records, and really everything in between. So how did all this play out? And where does it leave us moving forward? Community sentiment aside, the controversy and criticism of the epic raid really began weeks before the raid even launched, when Bungie announced that the winners of this race would receive a world's first belt. While this is the norm for most raids, the winners of hard modes or prestige mode raid races such as Eater of Worlds, Leviathan, Spire of Stars have never received a belt, and therefore it was questionable why Bungie decided to change that for Desert Perpetual. Fuel was added to this fire when 4 of the 6 winners from the normal mode Desert Perpetual decided to boycott this raid race, as they felt that the epic raid belt undermined their achievement and was somewhat of a slap in the face, as they reportedly had not even been contacted by Bungie to receive their original winner's belt, with the team only seeing a photo of it alongside the epic raid belt announcement. Another community pillar and world's first winner, Glad, also withdrew from the race after issuing a statement that cited his lack of interest in the game, combined with frustrations to do with the concept of the race itself as 2 main factors in not competing. As the raid day began, it became clear that plenty of other creators had also decided to prioritize other games or experiences over the epic Desert Perpetual. But several hours later, a big plot twist may have made a few gamers somewhat regret that decision. Immediately upon entering the epic raid, visual changes were observed to the arena, and the question of whether the raid would return to a linear style for the updated version were quickly answered, as racing teams entered different encounters and selected their own strategy for the race. Reigning world's first champion Snazzy Rock began on the Hobgoblin, while 4-time winners in Elysium began on the Wyvern, and the Vespers host winners, Team Indebted, started on the Hydra. It's important to note that all of these teams looked a little bit different, with Snazzy being a part of Team Tommy, which featured some players like Mario and Luigi from Sunder Doctrine's World's First. Elysium also added 2 different players, this time Jiff, a brand new player to the squad, as well as a World's First champion, Vendetta, formerly from John Team with ATP and Zemo, while Indebted, who had just lost Pine to getting banned not too long ago, started with new players as well. This made for an interesting viewing, as much like the normal mode, it was exciting seeing 3 encounters getting solved simultaneously. However, unlike the normal mode, the first boss did not take nearly 3 hours to clear, with Team Wordle in 3 clearing the Hydra boss in just 27 minutes, with the relatively simple mechanical changes providing little challenge for racing teams. Bungie's changes to Apoptes really came in 3 simple parts, with a slightly more complex 2-step pattern for the inside teams to deal with, a larger shield around the boss, and the addition of an extra shield that 2 teleported players had to deal with before damage. The fundamentals of this fight are really the same, with just more precise teamwork and communication required to clear it. By the end of the raid, it would be pretty universally agreed that this was the worst encounter of the epic version, really encapsulating everything wrong with the reprise difficulty raids to begin with. But that's a wider issue we'll dive into later. Just 20 minutes later, and we had reports flooding in that team from China had made significant progress on the Hobgoblin boss, and they were nearing final stand. And though they would unfortunately wipe before getting the completion, it became clear that this team was a serious contender and would play a key role in this race moving forward. As we ticked over the 1-hour mark, a household name in Elysium put their stamp on the race, as they 2-phased the Wyvern boss for the first kill. This encounter is the one with the most mechanics change from the 3 non-linear bosses, and it did provide some challenge for teams to crack. Firstly, racers would now be suspended briefly when the diastole timer activated, giving the player with the jumper roll an extra factor to worry about. The spawns and drops of the Minotaurs were changed and would continue to have the possibility to change between damage phases or after wipes. Mechanics around the dunk color had also changed too, requiring a runner to stand in a Vex pool to get the read, with this also resetting when jumping through the ring, meaning meaning that teams would have to reread each time. The changes to the Wyvern encounter really helped to restore the balance between mechanical complexity and a DPS check that so heavily favored the latter in the normal mode. It's clear that Bungie also tuned something without ever mentioning it in the contest settings for this raid too. Skull icons appeared above enemies in the previous race, whereas this time it was sword icons, indicating that enemies were definitely less strong. And this without a doubt contributed to easier DPS phases, with a 2-phase Wyvern being all but impossible before, even for Elysium in the original contest mode. Another big change to this event was the actual racing side, with Bungie finally stepping in on the hiding screens drama that really escalated in Salvation's Edge. Teams were required to stream, not allowed to fully hide their screen, and were only allowed to obscure limited parts of their game. This both created a better viewing experience and provided some competitive integrity. Although the fact that every racer was streaming and no one was completely hiding from the public eye meant that info on the mechanics spread faster. And just 10 minutes after Elysium's Wyvern 2 phase, Team Wordle and 3 had cleared their second boss, being the hobgoblin Agrios, meaning just over 71 minutes into the whole race, we had now seen all of the non-linear bosses get a clear. The added mechanics for Agrios found themselves sitting between the Hydra and the Wyvern, with the changes felt right from the encounter's start.
Final stand bar? There is a final stand bar. Wait, chat. You guys are cooking.
However, Bungie also really broke the mold with this fight by adding color routing and resets, as well as requiring players to line up the portal and coils to colors matching the buffs dropped by the Minotaurs before dunking them into the correct spots. The final stand moment wasn't really anything major either, requiring the completion of a simple find the right clone puzzle before moving on to damage. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it did provide a brief burst of excitement as we watched things unfold for the first time. With all 3 bosses completed by varying teams, it was only a matter of time before someone moved on to the final boss, and that was Team Wordle and 3, who achieved this feat in around 1 hour and 53 minutes, and therefore 1 hour quicker than it took any team to complete any boss in the normal mode contest.
Third boss!
Wow.
What's next? Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Find out on Raid Zone!
Up until this point, with the community sentiment already at a low and reservations over the epic raid formula apparent, it's fair to say that these first 3 encounters did very little to help Bungie's case. However, the raid and dungeon team always have an ace up their sleeve, an ace so strong in this case that it uncovered a 10-year-old mystery.
We talked about breaking the mold. Prestige modes, master modes, hard modes. Nothing's ever had a new encounter before. Nothing's ever had a new space before. What you're seeing is the mold being broken. We've never seen. What is this?
This is
epic. Oh, no. Wait, what is this? Wait, what are we watching, Evan?
I don't know.
What are we
What is
watching?
that? That looks like Koragos' dead body, but like, maybe?
Can you imagine if in the epic raid it's like post us actually slaying the main boss?
That's what
that would be
that's
like,
what it
yeah,
looks
like
like to
canon.
me,
We already
CB.
beat it. Like,
As my beautiful co-host CB Gray wonderfully pointed out, Bungie well and truly broke the revised raid formula with this new location. The environment team has always cooked, but we have never seen a new location introduced to a hard mode. We've never seen it introduced to a prestige mode or a revised raid race at all. And this was truly exciting to see. As the initial hype died down, it also became apparent that this location held an incredibly special place in Destiny history too. The kernel environment is actually a cut piece of content from Destiny 1's roadmap that was also featured in the trailer for Season of the Undying back in 2019. It's incredible that a beautiful piece of content that many thought would never be playable has finally found its way into our game. The lore behind this location and its development is also truly mind-blowing, and I'd urge you to watch Solus's video that goes into much greater depth, and make sure to give him a sub while you're there. However, Bungie's plot twist did not stop there either, as another mold-breaking surprise awaited players in the actual boss room itself. Bungie had teased the idea of adding a new encounter when they first announced the epic raid concept, but with little commentary on that in recent time, I think it's fair to say that many disregarded this statement, and data miners only ever recovered strings for 4 encounters, and therefore we believe that there would be no additions. However, Once the first teams reached the boss, we saw the new arena and the spawn of all 3 bosses.
And then Agrios is there?
Wait, what, Evan? What?
Wait, Eondros is there?
Wait, why are they all there?
Wait,
Poppy's
is there?
too.
Wait,
they're all there. Wait, what? Huh?
Once the first teams reached the boss, saw the new arena, and the spawn of all 3 bosses, it became apparent that Bungie had remained true to their word. Although it would take an hour or so for the community to realize how special this Korogos remaster truly was. Around 45 minutes after the first reach of the final boss, Team Wordle and 3 were the first to experience one of the most fourth wall breaking raid mechanics in Destiny history.
Looks like
Just trying to really focus
Yeah.
on, because like right now Llama and G Miners have been doing similar things, and they're also
they're about to wipe. Wait, what? Wait, full screen. What?
Wait, full screen.
Wait,
Llama?
what?
Wait, rally banner? Wait, hold on.
Wait,
Time
what
out,
just
time out,
happened?
Time out. Go to full screen Llama.
While Vaulted Glass messed around with time travel during the Atheon fight, this mechanic was on a whole new level, seemingly teleporting players back to the start of the fight, even allowing them to use their rally flag again. This also seemed to completely negate the not swap modifier, but that's a whole different controversy for us to address later. Whereas the first 3 bosses had taken just under 2 hours to blitz through, the complexity of this fight would be so strong that it would take longer than that for Team Wordle and 3 to just kinda deal damage to Korogos for the first time. Despite Wordle and 3's consistent lead throughout this raid race, it would be unfair to say that they were running away with it at any point. The Elysium powerhouse had been lurking in the background, and if we know anything about Elysium, they're all about execution. Delayed by about 30 or 40 minutes after they had chosen to start on the more mechanically complex Wyvern encounter. Although they had reached the boss later than the leading team, after about 2.5 hours, they took the theoretical lead, completing the 2-time resets and making the most progress that we had seen to this point. As the raid timer ticked over the 5-hour mark, passing even the original contest raid Crown of Sorrow, we finally saw Elysium deal significant damage for the first time. The Korogos Reprisal was a seriously long 6-phase fight that could basically be split into 3 repetitions of minigame plus damage systems before a final face-off with the boss. While the mechanics were certainly not as complex as a Verity or anything like that, the sheer length of the fight meant that it just took ages for teams to fully discover, understand, and then develop strategies for each and every phase. I'm not going to explain the mechanics here, as this isn't a guide and I don't want to put all of you to sleep, but the inclusion of previous bosses, the inclusion of time travel, starting the encounter on an enraged timer, and the sheer spectacle environment all worked hand in hand to create, without a doubt, the greatest revised encounter of all time, and an encounter that would put forward a pretty good case for being one of the greatest boss fights of all time, full stop. With the content creator reactions really speaking for themselves on this one.
This has got to be the sickest boss room ever, though.
He's fractured. He's not the world line anymore. He's fractured in time. And Rage is near. We just started.
Korogos readies a new world line.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
so yeah, all 3 of the bosses are just walking around casually
Dude,
shooting
that's
at us.
hilarious.
It wouldn't be until around 7 hours on the raid race clock that teams would reach a point in which we felt a world's first would be possible. Team Parabellum wiped just before the final stand, 8 minutes prior to Elysium falling short at a similar point too. Elysium would continue to fall painfully short on final stand in 2 more runs following this wipe, and it became obvious at this point that the world's first clear of Epic Raid was closer than ever before. But the question still remained, did Bungie have one last surprise for us at Final Stand? Well, at 8 hours and 2 minutes on the clock, we finally got an answer to that question.
Almost at death there. They get the rift down, and we are at the final stand.
Come on, it's the final
Here we go.
stand.
What
It's
is
the
it? What
final
happens?
stand.
What happens?
What?
Wait,
Wait, what? What? Hey, Bungie? What?
Tides from Indebted had wiped so soon after Final Stand that it made us think on Raid Zone that there was some sort of a hidden mechanic which would become live during the Final Stand. Although not competing, World's First winner Glad was watching the race and chimed in with an early hot take, however, suspecting that this Final Stand bar was bait. A few people were disagreeing and came up with their own theories and replies, but we would have to wait a little bit longer to find out who was in the right. 8 hours and 19 minutes into the raid time, ATP's team of Anti-Unk Coalition, the team that had dropped Vendetta from their roster, had entered the final stand on Korogos, and for the first time did not instantly wipe.
I mean, this is fantastic damage, all things considered. They are going to end up wiping the damage. I don't think they're going to make it here. But what, I mean, looking up, look at them looking up.
Maybe.
They might get it, actually, Evan, but what does it matter?
There it is. It's final again.
Hey, wait, they're not white.
Final again.
Wait,
They're
Evan,
not
they're not
white.
white.
They're not.
Wait, they
but-
are.
but
Wait,
they
are they white? Wait,
Wait,
one
what?
didn't wipe. Wait, Evan, what is going on? What is?
What?
Wait.
What?
Wait, now, wait, huh?
What?
What? I don't understand.
What?
I don't understand.
What?
Live on Raid Zone, we simply did not understand what caused this wipe, truly believing that there was a mechanic to stop this, but we didn't even have time to speculate, as right at this very moment, Elysium was nearing final stand for the 4th time in little over an hour, and this time there would be no mistakes made, but that would not spell the end of the epic raid story.
Another one, the 4th silver.
Come
Maybe.
on.
There's
Come
so
on.
There's
Come
so
on.
open. There's so
Come on.
Wait.
Run.
It's red like before. It's red like before.
Run.
Move away.
Get out of the room.
First for Elysium.
Get out of the room.
Is this 5 belts? Is it 2 for Vendetta?
Run.
They're running away. They don't know where to go. Are they alive? It doesn't look like the health bar left. I think he's still alive. I think they're missing something. I think there was damage maybe to 2. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what to do.
Korogos just fell.
It doesn't feel like it's over, but maybe it's over
CB,
at the same time. I'm not sure.
It might be.
Mission
complete.
New objective.
The world's
first.
This clear and the completion would extend and set a new world record for raid race wins, with Team Elysium adding a mind-blowing 5th belt to their already impressively decorated portfolio of achievements. However, the fallout and the controversy that followed the end of the race would create several huge talking points. The raid was a massive success, but in reality, only a success because expectations of the epic raid were already so low. Desert Perpetual's revision did little to dispel the narrative that hard, prestige, or epic raids were pointless and undeserving of a race. In the eyes of many, the raid and dungeon team should have made the raid as good as possible and not hold back cool or difficulty increasing features for the sake of creating a remixed version, and it's hard to fully disagree. Korogos dying in the normal mode and then us fighting him in the hole on the epic mode in many ways felt like an encounter that had been deliberately cut 2 ways and had the potential to be an incredible 2-part boss. Almost akin to Riven going into a Queen's Walk, but even newer. The decreased viewership and participation in the epic raid spoke volumes to how far the community sentiment has fallen and how people simply did not value it as much as other events, and it's incredibly difficult to understand why the harder and more epic version of Desert Perpetual raid had easier damage checks and kinder power deltas than the normal contest version. While I understand epic Desert Perpetual had not swap added and there was already criticism of the normal mode difficulty, I can't help but feel that the normal mode DPS checks combined with the epic mechanics would have just been the best experience possible, even if they do play into each other narratively. Tides and Team Indebted would eventually achieve 3rd place around 20 minutes after Elysium's win, with the team from China on Billy claiming a well-deserved runner-up position sometime in between. Now, some serious controversy did begin to arise over the placement of a well-known team in the hours that followed the raid's completion. Some of these allegations are quite serious in the world of raiding, and I currently don't feel educated enough on the matter to present any sort of arguments or facts on my platform, as I don't want to get things wrong. However, there is one last important controversy that I do want to cover. Despite how surprised much of the community was about Bungie's raid reprisal work, a crushing blow would strike shortly after. Datto, Mr. Destiny himself, announced that he would be taking a complete break from Destiny until the Renegades DLC, a reality check about both the state of the game and, unfortunately, its volatile community. Look, everyone, when Destiny is at its best, the community is at its best. But unfortunately, the opposite is also true. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't feel a little disheartened about some of the comments I saw aimed at myself, CB, and Raid Zone during and after the event. I'm not going to go into depth with it now or discuss it any further. I just want you all to know that I'm incredibly grateful for everyone who has supported Raid Zone even in its early days with King's Fall as reprisal, and everyone who continues to do so today, even when Bungie invites us to present it with them. I have always and will always put my heart and soul into preserving, researching, and covering raid races, and covering community stories across Destiny and other games. There are community stories that deserve to be remembered, and I thank all of those who continue to support me, good times and bad times. I really mean it.